This is Pull Request, live from the heart of Brooklyn. Pull Request is an hour-long podcast about everything in and relating to technology. Starring three techno experts. Eric Newman, hi. Chris Grabowski,
hello.
And Tyler Dinner.
Hey there.
This week's episode, Get Out. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Pull Request. My name is Eric Newman, and to my left, as always, is nobody because we do this podcast alone. But on the internet is Chris Grabowski. Hello.
Hello.
And to his metaphorical left is Tyler Dinner. Hello, how are you?
Hey, guys, I'm doing good.
Fantastic. Well, it's certainly nice to have all of you back here this week. Tyler, I went to your home state, and you weren't here to listen to me complain about it.
No, I heard you got lots of sunshine, which I'm very jealous of.
I got lots of sunshine and a slight tan because, you know, it's still long sleeve weather in February a little bit. But, I don't know.
I dealt with some nasty lady named Bella. Not a fan.
Say that again?
I dealt with some nasty lady named Bella.
You dealt with some nasty lady named Bella?
Storm lady.
Oh.
Is that her name? Storm Bella?
Oh, I don't know. We don't track snowstorms.
I had no idea there was a name.
Yeah, no, Christian, the Weather Channel started naming snowstorms because they're easier to track, I guess. They're not official.
Stella's the name of the storm. I'm sorry.
It's not. Stella! It's not.
Stella, brah.
It's not official, like the National Weather Service or NOAA name hurricanes. But winter storms aren't officially named except on the Weather Channel. Yes, and in the past week. So you know what? Speaking of California, speaking of, where is it? California. Yeah, you missed that last week too, Tyler. I'm the person who can make it rain in California and prevent the blizzard from happening in New York, and I think I did both of those things in the last 2 weeks. So we were supposed to get a blizzard, and we did not.
We got something.
Yeah, we got a bunch of ice and 4 inches of snow, and it's been real fun walking around this place for the last week. Right?
Brown snow. The best.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's not even, like, really snow anymore, though, as much as just, like, this...
Just dirt.
It's kind of like a 7-Eleven Slurpee, but made of dirt.
Made of dirt and poop. And, yeah. It's. I remember I visited MIT when I was in college, and they have pink snow. And I think that in New York you could find...
Is that the blood of one nerd being bullied by another nerd?
Yeah, exactly. It's that's what happens to the people who can't make it through freshman year is they're used to clump up the snow. No, they have an additive that's supposed to make the snow easier to shovel, but it turns it pink. This was from 10 years ago. I don't know if it's true now. Hopefully they might have actually solved it. Now it's white. But for all I know, it was pink. I'd say in New York City, we've got all of the other colors of snow that you could not want. Definitely yellow, definitely brown, definitely black, definitely red, definitely green. No blue? I don't think there's blue.
There's certain kinds of salts that make the snow blue.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, they do have dyed salts. You could get turquoise dyed. That doesn't count, though.
It kind of does.
Blue.
It counts, but, it almost looks like you killed a clown when you throw out that salt. Anyway.
Or an Italian ice vendor.
Ooh, an Italian ice. Or, as they say in Bushwick, Juegos. Juegos.
Also,
Juegos?
Italians are the number one meme of the
Jugos.
week. For those of us
I have
following the
noticed.
internet, sure
I saw a great meme. Edward Italian hands.
It started with one. I remember seeing the original on Monday or Tuesday, and then the next day there's like 4 different memes of Italian hands doing everything.
Yeah. Italians are the meme of the week? That is random.
The way they hold their hands when they talk, the pinch, the thumb pinched against all 4 fingers.
Yeah, and then usually, traditionally, the one thing that a meme can't really convey is the up and down motion as they talk with those hands.
Interesting. Colin Quinn has a bit about Italian hand gestures, and I think that's why Italians and Jews get along really well, because we both talk with our hands and complain, and have big noses. Anyway.
But as Seth MacFarlane has said, Italians are not Jews, don't forget.
Right.
Thank you,
Italians are not like Jews.
The other thing I would mention is there is a sex move named after Bernie Sanders now, and it all has to do with his hand motions.
Oh, my God.
It's kind of just you take your pointer finger and you shake violently with it.
And you don't talk because that probably will kill an erection. And I just want to make sure that you are not part of the top. What happened? Why are you leaving? What are you doing? Anyway. That is my romantic life. No. I'm very much falling into the Washington Post article of why developers don't get laid, but I'm actually working on correcting that via an auto-like script on OkCupid. I think that might be a way of...
actually allowed?
What was the complaint?
No, it's not. It's not allowed. Of course it's not allowed. Anything, and it might actually technically be like a felony under the DMCA because you're not allowed to go against any sort of protections or restrictions that a software device has. So that's technically, something. But I don't send me to jail.
They would limit their API if you maxed out too many calls. And
no.
Yeah,
actually, wait. Hold on. I will tell you how. Because they do. You will eventually get a 400 back from the Match API, and but what I noticed is when I started doing first, there is an auto-like script that is published on GitHub. It has nothing to do with us. That, like most things in life, didn't work for me. It worked for me for about a day. What it does is it goes through their quick match thing, and it just likes everybody as soon as the like button is available, just one by one by one. But in my life of ironies, what happened is the quick match actually started recommending people 100 miles away. So I started getting listings like you. It's one of these things where you can just set it and forget it, and you can just let it run, and then come back a day later, and you realize you've liked half of Brooklyn, which is fine. If they like you back, then you can start a dialogue. But anyway, no. So what happened is that I'd leave it running for like 10 minutes, and then I'd see like Farmingdale, Connecticut, Hartford, Connecticut, somewhere in Massachusetts, somewhere in Philadelphia. Just
Farmingdale is Long Island.
It is long. No, there's also a Farmingdale, Connecticut.
Interesting.
Yes, they may reuse city names across state lines, but anyway, or it says Farm something, Connecticut. Farmingdale is Long Island. Anyway, my point is that's whatever. Farms. That didn't work for that reason. So I wrote a script under a similar circumstance where you go on the matches page and then it just likes everybody and scrolls to the bottom of the page so it loads new matches. Now, what happens when you do that is every time, so you can, instead of liking one person at a time, you can like up to 54 people at a time, which is great. And that all seems to trickle back really well. But what happens is after you like somebody, it actually makes a request to a stats API, and that is rate limited. And so what I saw is as I was running the script, after like about 10 likes, I started getting 400s back from the stats API. So I just blocked the requests to it.
Did you inspect the body though to it? I imagine it's just saying like how many. It's
just saying how many people you liked and when. And
so that's not going to stop you from actually doing the request.
But because this is kind of under the rug, and if they can, and I'm sure they have some kind of heuristics to figure out if people are gaming the system. API errors are a great way to get people's attention because we do that. I'm sure you do that where you work. We do that where I work.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so what I wanted to do is make sure that I don't get any sort of request errors, and I just redirected the request to that API to localhost. So it's great. What happens is eventually, like I said, you'll get, and when I say eventually, I mean you'll go through about 2,000 people, and then eventually you'll get a 400 from the match API, and then you'll have to reload the page. But you won't get new matches unless you unblock the stats algorithm, or the stats API. So the way to do it is you load the page once and then block the API request. Have it cycle through everybody until it runs out of people, unblock it, reload the page, and then start it over again. And it's a little tedious, but it's a few minutes of work to like a few thousand people. And out of those few thousand people, one of them has liked me back, so that's something. Meanwhile, you've tried exactly the same thing, and I think you got laid in half an hour? Christian, after trying that? It was highly effective. We can put it that way.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, we have. I'd love to spend a day in your world. Anyway,
wait. Let's just sum this up with: if you're a guy, you can get laid by these simple steps, or if you're a girl, you can log on to Tinder and be done in an hour.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Well, I mean, but it's a different world.
Or just walk outside, really.
But, I mean, it's different, though, for girls, because you probably have a bunch of dicks just constantly running at you. Hey, like, every time I like someone on OkCupid, I think of, like, hey, can I put my dick in you? Oh, wait, this is getting too... It's basically what it is.
Maybe we should change topics here.
Anyway.
Slope giggity.
Yes. Any conferences? Any conferences this week?
Not any this week, but DockerCon just announced their speakers, and it is a tremendous lineup this year.
Where is ZockerCon?
Austin, Texas this year.
Oh, so are they using the same rooms as South by?
I don't believe so. Although I did hear South by had some pretty cool trade show things going on.
Is South by basically the new CES, or or the new Condex?
Sorta, like less so of like an actual tech focus, so much as culture focus, and now tech is just part of our culture.
Right. I don't know. It's probably too mainstream, isn't it?
I think South by is a combination of like every type of festival and convention combined into one.
Yeah, I'd say so. That like
Plus ayahuasca.
Like my company, we had our
festival plus like booths for just people. It's crazy. You can
Yeah.
like buy your own booth and sell your own blankets and stuff.
yeah, I was gonna say like my company, our developer Evangelicus was down there.
Doing what?
Well, trying to get the word out on how awesome we are.
Oh, I didn't know if you meant like he was doing other stuff there.
I mean, if you're there, I don't know what he's doing, but he seemed pretty psyched for it. So,
Nice. I've never
Yeah.
been, so
Cool.
I don't really know.
oh, I'd love to be there. It sounds awesome.
It might be a bad idea to be in Austin around that time.
For you?
No, just in general. You know how these work. Everybody floods in, and the city doesn't have the infrastructure to handle the influx of people, so it's just miserable. And except for the
That
time
sounds
that you're
like
at
New
the
York
event.
every day, though.
It is New York every day, and we actually had the infrastructure. We would have the infrastructure to handle everybody if you'd all just go home. Just go home. Let the people who live in New York
You're still
work
here?
in New York.
We're done here. Go home.
Party's over. Okay, CBGB's is closed. Just go home. Anyway. So did you guys, before we get into the news, you guys have a good week?
Yeah, busy week, but good week.
No complaints from me.
Any cool stuff in the exciting world of VR, Tyler?
I have no idea right now.
Okay.
I saw so many news articles today. Like I can't. In the last 5 weeks, I can't remember which one.
You want
This
to?
week.
Can you remember one of them?
Oh God. No. Let's not. Give me a minute.
Okay. Well, while we give you a minute to do that, let's talk about the news for this week, which is that the EU, the European Union, European Commission, have done something that they typically like to do to American companies. They give us rules out of nowhere and then threaten to charge us a lot of money if we don't listen to them, offering no help in the process. Let's hear it from our news department. No Money On presents News to Use. Brussels, Friday, March 17th. The European Commission is taking a step to prevent computer fraud on social media by mandating the companies who provide these services to police for this type of content. Social media providers would have to alter their terms of service to not, quote, require customers to waive mandatory rights, such as their right to withdraw from an online purchase. Advertising must be clearly identifiable, and a service's terms of use, quote, cannot limit or totally exclude the liability in connection with performance of the service. Codes that involve taking payments from customers, subscriptions baited with a free trial, but without proper disclaimers, marketing counterfeited products, and fake promotions. All must desist in the near future or face harsh penalties from the governing body that loves taking jabs at American companies. The EU has given these companies 1 month to propose solutions that comply with the EU's regulatory framework or face harsh penalties, rather than proposing solutions of their own or offering constructive criticism of any kind. Though many Americans are afraid of what happens next, we at least know the world still turns and the truth marches on. That's why this has been News to Use, brought to you by Pneumonium.
Screw the Americans.
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect timing. I perfectly timed that anyway. Don't take away with it from it by talking about it. Yes, the EU loves to do this. They did it to. They've done it a million times to Microsoft. They've done it a million times to Google. With this, you guys have too much money. We like some of it. We would like some of your money. Yeah, it's a horrible accent.
Give us some of that internet money.
Yeah, because the EU, for some reason, could be its. It could be its, heavy regulatory framework that is preventing these startups from happening. I was trying to come up with a better. See, I did it. I managed to hit the new mic stand. A harsh regulatory framework that prevents a lot of startups from happening in Europe, minus Spotify. I'm sure there are a couple more. But that's why most of them happen in the U.S. and Canada, because we seem to be more pro-business. So what happens is we have a better environment for these businesses to get born and succeed. And then the EU, once they branch out and start going into foreign markets, they like sticking their fingers in our pies, saying, you made a lot of money last year. We want some of it. And then the company goes, well, we already got to pay Uncle Sam because we live here. So that's good enough for us. And then if we have offices in your countries, then yeah, we'll pay you taxes. But that's not, they want the golden egg. They want the $600 million. They want the 9-figure check from an American company. So they have said that they have required these companies like Facebook and Twitter and Google to better handle online scamming. Now, what's funny is I believe all of these services already have rules against it. But in the EU's grand wisdom, that's not enough. And they also say, it says the EU has given these companies a month to come up with solutions that work within the EU. And that's it. I don't think there's anybody in Brussels that's actually coming up with solutions. I said, no constructive criticism.
So another interesting component to this is the fact that the EU has basically a second internet. I forget what it's actually called, but it ends with the tel. And it's only something that exists in the EU.
Minitel?
Something like that. And
I think that's French.
It's most popular in France, but it does exist within the entire EU. And there are businesses that kind of compete with internet businesses that run on that would definitely provide more GDP to the EU.
If it weren't for
internet.
The internet,
yeah.
and all of the biggest internet services being American.
Yep.
And then, of course, the companies that are headquartered in our country do many, many gymnastics to prevent paying the tax that they should. Which that's another story because this is not an accounting podcast. But yeah, the EU has ordered social networks to remove fraudulent posts that can mislead consumers. Examples are scams. Sorry?
Fake news.
Yeah. They are actually doing that with fake news. I don't know if you've noticed, but some links to certain posts actually will trigger, if you're on a phone, it'll trigger a pop-up window that says, hey, this has been disputed by Snopes. Are you sure you want to view it? Yeah. Okay, well, just know we think it's fake news. Well, who runs Snopes? Don't ask about that. Well, why?
Don't ask, don't tell policy.
Snopes is a website. Like, where does that come from? Oh, okay. The Associated Press also said, the Associated Press was caught staging reports. Anyway, scams involving payments taken from consumers, subscription traps, where consumers are offered to register for a free trial but are not given clear and sufficient information, marketing of counterfeit products, and fake promotions like win a smartphone for €1 have proliferated over social media, which were, in fact, a true contest, but entailing a hidden long-term subscriptions for several €100 per year. That the writer of this did not read this out loud before submitting the story. The EU said it has met with all three companies and will give them 1 month to propose solutions. I can't, or that to comply with its regulatory framework or risk legal action.
This is just another attack on bigger boner pills. Terrible. All the ads are going to go away if that's what you get on your Facebook.
Right.
If you're like me and you get smaller boner pills, well, those pills work, so those are not fake. But I don't know what kind of ads you get on Facebook.
For when your erection is just too awesome.
I believe they're based on your browsing history, Tyler. So are you looking at boner pills a lot?
What do you call it? Reduction, boner size reduction. Yeah, that's a problem. That's an epidemic, really. It's not chronicled enough.
Christian,
gigantism in the shaft.
Yeah, people look at me funny when I park in the handicap space, but it's disability.
Then they see the limp in the third pant leg.
Yeah.
And they ask you to step aside. Why do I always get asked to be searched when I go through airports? No reason. No reason.
Meanwhile, when I go through airport security, I'm just told I have big old strong arms.
Wow.
Yeah, that's an actual quote.
Yeah, I opt out anyway because anyway. Christian, because Tyler wasn't here last week. There was much less penis on the show.
There is.
Yeah, you really bring that element to the show, Tyler. Thank you.
You bring a lot of penis.
Thanks.
Yeah.
As I was saying,
goes
it's
well
an
with your
epidemic.
gigantism.
It's an epidemic, really. I can't help it. We're
All
fighting.
right, let's try to limit the penis a little bit.
I'm trying. That's why I got the pills.
You watched into that one, Eric.
I did. You almost made me curse.
You're
okay.
not the first one to walk into it.
Oh.
All right.
More like back into it.
So
it's like a red thread that won't end.
okay. Main topic for this week, now that we're 20 minutes in, is about version control, and specifically Git. Git, I believe, is the most popular version control software out right now. Its biggest competitor is Subversion, and I don't know many people that use Subversion, but I know quite a few people who use Git. And of course, my personal empirical example is a good enough perspective for the rest of the world. So, yeah. No. Christian, would you say that Git is the most popular version control system right now?
Yeah, I'd say so.
And a version control system... Well, actually, before we dive into that, do you want to talk about a Git story? There's 2 Git stories, really. Or do you want to get into what a version control system is?
Why don't we do the overview first, and then...
All right.
Yeah.
A version control system is a component of software configuration management, also known as revision control or source control. It's the management of changes to documents, computer programs, large websites, and other collection of information. Changes are usually identified by a number or letter code, termed at the, quote, revision number, revision level, or simply revision. For example, an initial set of files is revision 1. It's pretty simple. Why not revision 0? Anyway, whenever the first change is made, the resulting set is revision 2, etc. Each revision is associated with a timestamp and the person making the change. Revisions can be compared, restored, and with some types of files merged. Version control systems, or VCS, which is an acronym that you'll probably never see, is most commonly run as standalone applications, but revision control is also embedded in various types of software such as word processors and spreadsheets, collaborative web docs, and in various content management systems like Wikipedia's page history or WordPress. Revision control allows for the ability to revert a document to a previous revision, which is critical for allowing editors to track each other's edits, correct mistakes, and defend against vandalism and spamming, like when you guys write penis all over the show notes.
You're welcome.
Right. The first version control system was an anagram for VCS, which is called CVS, and that's the concurrent version system. And now that you know VCS and CVS, you'll never be able to remember which one is which.
VCR.
Great. The concurrent version system, also known as CVS, or the concurrent versioning system, is a client-server free software revision control system in the field of software development. Although I'm sure you could just use this for any sort of text file. A version control system keeps track of all work and all changes in the set of files and allows several developers, potentially widespread in space and time, to collaborate. Dick Gruen developed CVS as a series of shell scripts in 1986. In addition to commercial software developers, CVS became popular with the open source software world and was then released under the GNU public license. GNU public license, general public license, the GNU GPL. While there was regular development to add features and fix bugs in the past, including regular builds and test results, there have been no new releases since 2008. Because we know why. And if you don't know why, we'll be getting to it soon. CVS uses a client-server architecture. The server stores the current versions of a project and its history, and connects the client to the server in order to check out a complete copy of the project. Then the client works on their copy, their checked-out copy, and then checks in their changes. A CVS labels a single project and which is a set of related files, as a module. A CVS server stores the modules it manages in its repository. Programmers acquire copies of modules by checking it out. The checked-out files serve as a working copy, a sandbox, or workspace. Changes to the working copy are reflected in the repository by committing them. To update is to acquire or merge the changes in the repository with the working copy. I don't believe CVS had branches.
Nope.
Releases. Gruen publicly released the code on June 23rd, 1986. That was 11 months before I was born. The code was eventually... the code that eventually evolved into the current version of CVS started with Brian Berliner in April 1989. He's a jelly donut. On November 19th, 1990, CVS version 1.0, holy crap, it actually made a release, was submitted to the Free Software Foundation for development and distribution. They didn't want to be perpetually beta, or was that not the trend back then?
No, it was not the trend back then.
I got you. They got the release out just in time for Roger Waters' The Wall live at the Berlin Wall in 1990. Anyway, so that's the 20th century. Sorry to pop. This new pop screen. I don't think it works. So CVS was the 20th century way of handling versions and code, and the 21st century way. There's 3 of them. And 2 of them are really popular. So the first is Subversion.
Actually, I'd say all 3 of them are very popular. But
is Mercurial really popular?
Yeah, it's used at pretty large companies because it does pander to large projects very well, actually.
Ugh. Does it? Can you just use Git and have it translate to Mercurial?
There are like export scripts out there.
Well, let's take a step back and talk about Subversion, or SVN. That first stable release was in 2004, and it was created by CollabNet. It featured commits, file-independent branching, which CVS definitely didn't do, locking files when merges collected, which I'm sure was very nice, and I'm
Conflicted.
sure CVS... Oh, conflicted, sorry. And I'm sure CVS also didn't do that. And a virtualized file system. Why did it need a virtualized file system?
So the way Subversion works is instead of it having the actual file being the thing that you can access, it is a combination of the blobs that SVN was saving. So this is kind of like the common thing nowadays to say each change is considered a blob in Git. In version control. And with that, what's actually on the file system is just a combination of all these blobs as opposed to the actual thing on the file system.
Blobs sound funny. But everything does blobs these days. Git definitely does blobs.
Yep.
Mercurial probably does.
In fact, actually, SVN might use the entire file as a blob.
So, like, each blob would be a file in its virtualized file system?
Yeah, it'd be a version of the file.
That makes sense. The problem... Oh, well, I'll keep reading here. No actual concept of a remote. All versioning was local to a specific machine. Due to the lack of a remote, the idea of hosting a website can be considered most file hosting sites. What?
So, like, either you had, anywhere where you could host a directory of files to be accessed over the internet would really be considered having a remote, whether it be just some drive with like a SAN or NAS unit in your data center, or some NFS mounted directory, or you were using something like SourceForge to just pull the whole thing.
So basically any folder with a .svn directory inside of it is good enough for a remote. Yeah,
but ideally you wanted it to be able to be somehow connected over the web, so that way it was just, here's your branch, and then you wanted to merge in. There was no concept of since we all use Git, there's the Git push and pull. The SVN doesn't have a concept of that. It's just
check in, check out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And so you check it in, you make your changes, and you check it out.
Yep.
You know, the problem I found, I actually started with Subversion in 2007? 2006? And it's interesting because a big pitfall of it is that it insists on creating .svn directories in every directory of your project.
Well, that's part of how it does the...
yes, but Git, in a much more elegant way, just makes one directory at the root of your project called .git, and it doesn't recursively create directories that you would then have to index or remove.
Yes.
Which is a big problem. It's a big pain in the ass.
Yes.
So, did you ever use Subversion, Tyler?
Only when I worked with you.
Did we use Subversion at Heartbeat?
We did.
Oh, man.
We had some application with a turtle icon that was a GUI for SVN.
Oh, yes. I don't remember what that was.
But I did like that turtle.
Right. I remember that. Yeah, and there are, of course, there are GUI versions or GUI wrappers for all of these.
GUI client.
Well, they basically wrap. They're not necessarily a client. They're just a wrapper for the shell commands, really.
Yeah, they wrap the shell commands, but
because you still have to have have to have Subversion installed on your system.
Yeah,
to use.
But I imagine you guys had some centralized server somewhere running the actual SVN repo, so it's a client.
Sure. Okay. So that's Subversion. Do you have any interesting Subversion stories, Christian?
No, I weirdly enough, I've never encountered that. I worked in the days of using FTP.
Well, that's definitely not versioning.
No, but that was kind of the alternative because
I have used that for a project too.
Yeah,
have you?
Actually, Tyler. The one I'm thinking of is when Tyler and I first worked together.
Oh, I forgot.
I'm having trouble figuring out if you're saying it's weird as in a sarcastic way, or it's weird because you both are stuck in the modern world of web development and don't remember how we did it in the old days.
Software development in general. Yeah.
Yes, well, FTP is I grew up on FTPing files, or you can't telnet files. Yeah, it was FTP.
Well, you technically can telnet files. It's not telnet at that point.
Does it use FTP?
No, telnet is just an open TCP connection.
No, but I mean when you...
FTP is built on top of TCP, though, so in a sense you could build FTP.
So when you if you sent a file using Telnet, then it would basically do an FTP connection.
No, it wouldn't.
No, it wouldn't? But you...
No, there's a whole FTP handshake that just would not be there that Telnet's not doing.
Oh, so then when you sent a file over Telnet, it would be what? Just
Telnet? It would be just you're sending text over a TCP connection.
Gotcha. What if you wanted to send binary data?
That's also allowed. It's TCP.
Okay. Anyway, Mercurial, first released in 2005. Now, I don't have any experience with Mercurial other than I can hardly say it, other than seeing it as an option to make a new repo on Bitbucket when you do that. Mercurial, first released in 2005, all but finding the differences in files. Is implemented in Python, so it's a bit slower in comparison to other options. How do the other guys do it?
C.
Oh.
Yeah.
Allows for both local and remote repositories. Uses a tree of file blobs to manage the state of files. I think that's similar to what Git does.
Yes, Mercurial and Git are very different aside from one feature Git does that Mercurial might do now, but at least it didn't do for a while.
Which is what?
The object compaction in compressing, within the tree. So when we get to Git, there's a mention of the fact that all the objects in the tree are periodically compressed and packed away. So that way it's not taking up as much room as something else would.
How is it compressing them? Just gzip or I guess no, it's not. No, how is it compressing them?
I don't know offhand. If I remember correctly, Mercurial does like a journaling instead.
Isn't that what like NTFS and HFS Plus do? They technically do versioning in the file system.
All file systems these days offer something like that, whether it be copy on write or where you're actually adding layers that you can undo, or it is doing journaling, which is like that new file system on OS X that is. People are like, whoa, this is super cool. That whole thing was the fact that it was doing journaling. So all of a sudden you say in a log, this content was written to a file. So that way, even if that wasn't actually written to disk or somehow corrupted, you have that log to refer to and say, okay, just recreate that data into that file because this happened based on the log.
Huh. And that new file system is called, of course, the Apple file system, which...
Creative.
Might have actually been what they used before HFS for like the Apple II. The name, not the file system, of course. But yeah, it's I think I think you will automatically be updated on iOS 10.3, and not that you'll notice a difference on the phone, but on the desktop, probably be the next version of OS 10. But that's what is really different about APFS, Apple's file system. Oh, it was included in macOS Sierra. I'm sorry. No, as a beta.
Yeah, so
yeah.
the big things are, like I mentioned, the journaling, and it also does the copy on write, so that's...
NTFS does journaling. I mean,
yeah.
HFS Plus, I'm sorry, does journaling.
Yeah, so there's journaling, but that plus copy on write, which the idea of copy on write is you have these layers in the file system that are just kind of like each write, so that way you have all these files, or like each layer is actually
Everything's
shared.
a pointer until it needs to be used, and then or until it changes.
Well,
until it mutates.
That's the idea of copy on write memory, but copy on write file system is the idea of you have a file system that until something changes, it's all considered the same layer, and then each change is a new layer to the file system. So if you want to undo a change, you just undo that layer. But the only thing that sucks there is then you're also undoing all subsequent layers. You can get in some advanced stuff where then you can say, okay, take everything else that was on those new layers and bring them down, but then they're considered new layers, so it can be a bit costly.
Gotcha. And of course, there was the SQL-based file system that Microsoft had tried to bake into Windows Vista and failed. That was called what?
I don't know, but that just sounds bad.
A headache.
Yeah.
No, it had a cool. No, it was supposed to be the future because it was like it was like finding files can just be a SQL query now.
What was it like? Is it just SQLite or was it Access? I don't know.
Great, because I want to write extra raw SQL queries.
Access file systems. There we go. That's probably what.
Oh yikes! Ugh.
No, I'm kidding. You'll have to. It's in the lores of things that were promised for Windows Longhorn that became Windows Vista that never happened. Anyway, I think it might have just been called like DBFS or something like that. And by the way, about Mercurial, Facebook and Google tend to use Mercurial, and I believe Google has created its own fork of it to work better with its hundreds of millions of lines of code.
Yeah, Mercurial lends itself very well to large projects due to the way it handles the concept of users and the fact that it is a much more distributed thing. You don't have to have absolutely one source of truth to write to. You can have all sorts of distributed ones that then kind of share state of... So you can have multiple remotes, basically.
Why would you want to do that?
If you have a very large company that's globally distributed, instead of always pushing to the same repo over and over again, it can actually share that data.
But with branches and forks and stuff, that should be fine, yeah?
That allows you to make those changes, but then you're also having to deal with keeping all those changes. Based on last week's discussion on having multiple things instead of one thing. It's probably a bad idea to have if you have a large team for everyone to be pushing to one single repo. Is that what it is? Yep.
Yeah.
Distributed. It's the keyword of 2017 code.
Take the microphone out of your throat, please, Tyler.
It's not cool if it's not distributed.
Yes.
No longer cool. It's no longer worth it. It's no longer even worth writing. Screw it. It's lame. It's not cool. It's official. It's got to be asynchronous. It's got to be some other shit.
Whoa, it doesn't have to be asynchronous.
Oh, right. We're past that. That was the last 5 years. Async, and then this year, no, sometimes it's got to be sync, brah.
Why does it sometimes have to be sync?
I don't know. I'm not the one that sets these trends.
Well, I wasn't asking you.
Oh, Christian, that's your question.
Well, it all depends on what you're actually doing. Like, if you're just doing networking, yeah, be async. If you're doing things like all of a sudden you're CPU intensive, you want the I/O to be synchronous, but then you can have as many threads that you need to handle the computations, and it's
this way the UI or the
doing.
I/O doesn't choke while you're doing a network transaction.
Yeah.
Which that one thing, by the way, has what has been. I can't talk today. I'm sorry. That one thing, by the way, has been what's plagued Windows XP's responsiveness forever. It was most of the time that it looks like it's going to crash or it says not responding. It's actually waiting for some kind of network thing to bounce back. But that blocks the way they did it is they have it block the UI, which then makes you think that your computer's crashed when it's just waiting for something.
Well, back then a lot of computers had only 2 cores, so.
Or 1 core.
Yeah.
Hardcore.
No, but you could do. There was a way to do it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But
anyway,
yeah.
To the most popular version control system, Git released GIT, not JIT, even though I say GIF. Oh, that's an interesting inconsistency. Git. Sorry.
That's a creator spec. Special word.
Git, first released in 2005, the year I graduated from high school, created by Linus Torvalds.
So you know it was awesome.
Yes. And it seems to have possibly the steepest learning curve, but once you're in it, it's the most. It has the best equilibrium between features and ease of use and ability to recover from failures.
And the worst diagrams ever.
Why?
Every time someone tries to make a branching diagram that says, "Here, this will explain Git," it's like, "Oh no, that's way harder."
There was that.
That would have been fine.
There was that Git cheat sheet that we got from that DigitalOcean meetup a few months ago.
Oh, I didn't take one.
I didn't take one either because I think we both looked at it and we're like, yeah, I know this.
Yeah.
I have.
That's awesome to offer though, because I do know I see a lot of these more junior.
You know someone who could use it? Maybe he's on this podcast.
Oh, not cool, dude.
No.
Oh no! I one time read a book.
Tyler was saying that it would be cool to have something like that, and I said that's why.
Oh no!
Yeah.
I one time read a book on Git. I read the first 4.5 chapters, and it was so dumb by that point because it was just like theoretically, imagine we had this, and imagine we had this, and then by chapter 4, we were theoretically at like a 50,000 person company, and everything had gone haywire, and we were going to be able to fix it. And I was like, I don't care. I'm not going to need this.
Well, you could argue that's kind of the problem with many technology books in general. I remember when I was in 10th grade, I was reading this book on C.
And I'd say it depends on the author, too, who the audience they're trying to write for is. Because I find, like, particularly when they're writing for, like, the more your stuff, this is just more detailed stuff or a new thing to learn for you. Those ones, it's just like, okay, get down to the facts, as opposed to these ones where it's like, we're trying to get you intrigued into the world of programming or something like that, where all of a sudden they go into like the history of time or something like that.
Right. No. But the dilemma that you end up with, and I think Tyler, you might have ended up the same way, is you kind of want to just do it. Like it's hard to read a book about hypothetically doing something on a computer, and then you have to take the knowledge that you read and then apply it on the computer. It's hard to read. I don't know. I feel like there's a disconnect between like reading a book not on a computer and then having to do stuff on the computer with knowledge from the book that isn't there. Anyway.
Sure. No, I've been writing code for 3 years professionally, and I have never needed anything that wasn't after chapter 2 in that book.
Well, if I ever get a hold of that Git cheat sheet for you, Tyler, I'll save it. Because that cheat sheet is much better than that book.
The cheat sheet when there were all day rebases, but.
That was because of communication error, I feel.
Yeah, I agree.
That was different.
But, yeah.
That's what. There we go. All day rebases. So, Git supports commits, of course. Staging changes before committing. File independent branching. Distributed remotes. Distributed remotes. That's kind of like Mercurial's having the not single source of truth.
It's different in this case. You have the single repo, but then you can have mirrors as opposed to being able to write to others.
Oh. Periodic object packing and forking. I already used the Quagmire.
Yeah. But that one deserves a giggity.
Okay.
That means two things.
Each tree uses a blob of diffs to keep track of the state, which is similar to subversion. Yes?
It's similar to all of them, except this one, it's these binary blobs that then can be unpacked to actually represent pieces of text within a file.
Do you know how these are compressed?
I do not know offhand what algorithm it uses. I believe... actually, I do know that if you use the embeddable libgit in my project, which I have used that in the past, particularly for my CI/CD server stuff, Maestro. It uses libgit, and it by default it won't do compaction, but if you compile it with zlib, then it will actually do compaction.
Compaction, not compression.
They use the word packing and compressing, and I just couldn't kind of combine the two.
Compaction. You couldn't compact the two.
Yeah.
I like compaction. Like, that sounds like it could be a real word.
Yeah, doesn't it?
But it's not.
No.
Sorry. Maybe in the 2018 Webster's Dictionary they'll add it. Let's see. The tree uses a tree of diff blobs to keep track of state. Each object has an SHA1 It's a type of hash. Object ID mapping at the time of its creation. Sorry?
Nothing. You said type of hash.
Oh. Mapping its time of creation, type of object, which is usually a commit or merge, and the size of the object. The motive behind Git was to create a service that supported better, non-linear, distributed development for small to large-scale projects. Git can run as a server out of the box, but there are many implementations of Git servers as well, and Git clients. We actually just got a license for Git Kraken, which is something that I won't use because I'm perfectly happy with the terminal, but I've heard many good things.
I know you didn't put this in the show outline, but I just thought I'd mention some of the options for that, which it's Git itself.
Oh, I didn't. I'm sorry.
You got Gogs, Bitbucket, which is also called Stash if you're hosting it yourself, GitHub, GitHub Enterprise.
Oh, no, they changed that. Actually, it's just Bitbucket now.
GitLab, there's both a hosted and a you host it yourself version. Fabricator, GitBlit, GitT, Garrett, Devio, GitStack, GitBucket, Gitorious, Meet, Giggity, Bonobos.
Why isn't there just Giggity or Gittity? Git Giggity. There's got to be.
Well, now when I build a Git server, I know what to name it.
There you go.
Califia, Sidra, and Git Prep.
So what do all these do that are differently from each other? Are they? Is it just like one guy?
A lot of them are.
Who's like, I'm going to make a Git server.
A lot of them are like different client, not with clients, but you know how there's natural GUI to GitHub. A lot of them are different in that manner. They offer different features around things, different ways to do.
So
pull
they're
requests.
basically just wrappers around the Git commands, and with a different type of web-based or native-based CMS.
Well, there's certain things about them that aren't things that Git offers, like organization management, like or managing your organizations as in your companies or teams.
Many cavemen reinvent wheel.
Yeah.
Basically. And I'm going to say GitHub Enterprise is probably making the most money. Yeah,
they charge a good bit, but also you look at the other people using it, and they're the people who can pay a good bit.
Right, and then they also have to pay for GitHub to host every jerk off's repos that they when they're coding on the train. That does take a lot of infrastructure. Someone's got to pay for that, and it's these enterprise people. That's like how Mongo distributes free software for these people to use, and their enterprise people are footing the bill. It's a very interesting business model.
Mm-hmm. Well, GitHub also makes money off of I'd say
if you have private repos.
Yeah, I was going to say, most people and companies have private repos these days.
Right.
$7 well spent.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yes, until they go down.
And it went unlimited. Sweet.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, I think it's up to 5 people unlimited, but yeah.
No, but before, even if you personally paid for...
Yeah, before it was 3 or something, 3 for $5 or something.
Yeah, now they're just $7 is free unlimited repos. Sweet.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Pretty sweet, bro. So now that we've talked about version control systems and the 4 biggest version control systems, I'm sure some developer somewhere in Minnesota or Eastern Europe has his own that he's rolled by himself, but that didn't make the cut for today. Let's talk about Git things. There's a thing called Gitter.
Jitter. I think
Jitter.
I've called it Gitter.
It makes sense if it's called Jitter.
I think it's Jitter. Yeah. I've called it Gitter, though.
What is Jitter? Where communities thrive.
So before Slack really caught on is when it first came out. And it was what I find pretty interesting about where you're headed with this is the fact that originally it was GitHub really pushing the use of Gitter as the way for communities to have more of this outreach to people trying to use the product or trying to contribute, where instead of having most people just use Slack these days. Even open source things will use Slack, but Gitter is kind of like the competitor for open source projects, where it says, "Here's this
Jitter
project, and you can chat about it, whether you need help using it or you're trying to actively develop with it."
It says on their website, Jitter is trusted by Airbnb, AWS, Google, Microsoft, something Science Lab. Oh, Mozilla's Science Lab, work on their logo, Rails, and the Scala team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some places will use Gitter instead of Slack.
I think your connection is dying, Christian.
I think it's just.
Hopefully, your local recording will save us. Anyway,
I would imagine so.
Well, let's see what happens. Let's see. Okay, so it's basically just a chat client that you can integrate with Git.
Yes.
and stuff that happens. So,
And
I mean,
it gives you a pretty sweet badge in your repo, your README file badge.
Pretty sweet, but
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a Slack bot that can do most of this.
Probably. Well, Slack itself could function for this as well. In fact, like
No,
if you
but I mean,
look
there's
at,
got to be a Slack bot that's like, when you post a new commit to a repo, that it'll throw a message in the channel saying, "Hey, you've done this."
Yeah, there are tons that do that. In fact, you don't even need a Slack bot for that. GitHub has a direct integration into Slack for that.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, that's GitHub though. That's not Git. I mean, that's they're not Git. They didn't make Git. They just
No,
are the
but
biggest
you can build
flag of it.
hooks around that and everything. But yeah.
Gotcha. Well, so Jitter was just bought by GitLab? Is that what happened? Yes, it's been acquired by GitLab. Wow! Before getting into the details, we'd like to thank the 800,000 plus people who make up the Jitter community for your enthusiasm and support for everything we've done. You've inspired our tiny team to keep shipping and making the open source and developer community a better place to connect to one another. Next piece of wow, we will be open sourcing all of the Jitter. That's right, the web application, the mobile apps, the whole 9 yards, free and open. This will not only allow the community to give back and improve Jitter for everyone, but it will allow communities to run their own Jitter instances. But if your mind isn't completely blown yet, wow, then I don't really care. So why GitLab? GitLab is one of the first. What is GitLab?
So GitLab is one of the more popular competitors to GitHub, where instead of GitLab also pushes you hosting it was its initial product as opposed to them hosting your stuff, and it's entirely private, and it's otherwise very similar to GitHub. It does do pull requests in a fairly noticeably different way.
You said the name of the show.
He said it. He said it.
He said it.
He said it.
And that's why I have to be Superman 3.
So GitLab is basically another GitHub.
Yeah, it solves the same problem.
But it's lower
ways.
but it's lower on the Internet Yellow Pages because H is before L.
Well, that and GitHub came first, so it was more popular.
Right, that's why they should have been AAA GitLab.com. That would have been much better for them.
Does Google index alphabetically?
when you get
Internet Yellow Pages.
when you get the Verizon Internet Yellow Pages, Tyler, I'm sure you'll get a copy this year.
For the kids at home, Yellow Pages is a phone book. That's the thing that had all the numbers of all the people that lived in your town before the internet.
No, that was the White Pages. The Yellow Pages were for businesses and for ads.
Okay, well, you got both pages in the same book. And
they still give them out. You ever come home one day to a bunch of just random books on your stoop? That's Verizon. Thanks, guys.
You ever pull a Steve Martin, look yourself up in there and go, somebody... Because I feel like Eric does.
No, because I don't get the White Pages. I don't even have a phone. Well, I don't even have. I think you need a real landline to get the White Pages. Anyway.
Oh, that's right. No wonder none of us have them.
Yeah. And when I lived in Pittsburgh, I put a sign that was like, just throw them in the recycle bin. I'm not even going to bring them in. So just deposit yellow for the Verizon Yellow Pages here, because there's no reason to open them up. Anyway, unless of course you want the best sushi restaurant on the Allegheny Plateau, which I'd advise everybody to not eat sushi when you're away from any coast or seafood. Not a good idea.
What's the Allegheny?
Yeah, we're plateauing.
Well, I mean, you think about it,
Allegheny Plateau, a hillbilly song?
No,
probably.
It's a you know it probably. It's a very large geographical region that extends into western New York and western Pennsylvania, and I think western Maryland and West Virginia. A lot of the West, the East-West. It's not the Midwest. It's almost the Midwest. It's the west of the East. Anyway. So when I say that, because when you talk to people from the real Midwest, like Minnesota, they will say Pittsburgh is definitely the Northeast, and those places are definitely in the East. Anyway,
I'd call it
off topic.
Mid-East, but okay.
Mid-East?
Middle East.
We could do that.
That's
Yeah. All right, so let's see. Frequently asked questions. Can I continue to use Jitter? I don't care. It's okay. Let's see. Here's something that actually is much more interesting. GitHub Enterprise Remote Code Execution.
Mm-hmm.
Every time somebody uses GitHub, if you have a large amount of green paper or you're very paranoid about your code, you can run your own GitHub. For $2,500 USD per 10 users, you can get GitHub Enterprise, a virtual machine containing a fully featured GitHub instance. Despite a few edge cases that are handled with an occasional GitHub.enterprise ? Invocation, it runs the same codebase as the original. So let's hack it. Somebody basically it's not even reverse engineering.
No,
they were able to deobfuscate and then
existence.
recompile the code for GitHub Enterprise, and
Well,
then
so
they
it's
just
not
ran it on their own.
compiled. A lot of GitHub is written in Ruby. They have some
Ruby isn't compiled?
No,
it's not
it's
JIT
interpreted.
compiled?
Nope, it's interpreted.
Is PHP compiled? Yeah, that's JIT. PHP is JIT compiled.
It depends on what PHP runtime you're using. If you're using HHVM,
Oh, HHVM's got to interpret it because it uses a different thing.
that's the default one interprets it. HHVM JIT compiles it.
Oh!
Yeah, I would have guessed that right.
Why?
I actually just knew that.
Why wouldn't HHVM interpret it? Because it has a completely different framework. It would have
Because
to interpret the PHP code into the HHVM code.
JIT compiling
hack,
is
right?
generally no. HHVM is generally considered a much faster way to execute interpretable code. Like V8, the JavaScript runtime is a JIT compiler, and what JIT compilation is it's like interpretation, but instead of just going through each bit of code and executing it as it runs, it does interprets it all to translate it into an intermediate language, and then executes that intermediate language.
But isn't so these lines? I mean, Ruby is still a high level language, so it has to be when it's interpreted. It's like, is that like a micro compilation?
It's interpreted like
Kind of.
It's so Ruby is very similar to Python in a lot of ways, and
It seems like it.
in fact, there's been a lot more work about trying to get Python to be faster. It's always complained about more, but Ruby also has the same issue of the fact that it's being interpreted, so it goes line by line for code execution, or however many lines it is until it does need to execute something. And
Interesting.
So this takes a lot longer, and basically Ruby started as kind of like an alternative to Bash, actually, where it's just a bunch of little C modules that you're executing.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Very chill with the file system.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this post talks about the vulnerability. There are two problems with the above code. The environment variable enterprise session secret is never set, so the secret defaults to the value in the code. It has a default value given. You can assign arbitrary cookies and set your session ID as you like. However, this does not help you since the session ID is 32 random bytes. But you can now feed arbitrary data into the marshal.load function. This is very... I mean, you kind of have to be looking at what this guy is doing.
Yeah, but basically it's the fact that they managed to reverse engineer a bunch of the GitHub code.
Which is enterprise level, as in this is where they make their money, and he could just put his own...
Yeah, but this is also pretty much the same code base as a lot of the services that are in GitHub, while there are other services that aren't included here that GitHub Enterprise goes back to or just doesn't have. It's still...
So it's a way that you could potentially attack GitHub itself, like GitHub Enterprise itself.
Well, clearly what he's found is the web service, or at least one of the web services. And it does seem to be that it's dealing with sessions is the big one that he has an example of. And so one thing is I saw the word CGI in there, and anytime there's CGI, you can usually assume that there's going to be
some kind of remote code execution. Yeah, exactly. That's been a 25-year-old problem. Thanks, guys, for fixing that. It's funny, he's piping things into temp/pwned. Hilarious. Anyway. But at least he sent the exploit code and made an ASCII logo for it. This guy is hilarious. He's to GitHub, so he's actually not just a black hat. He's probably a gray hat hacker.
I really hope this guy gets a job with GitHub because of
he
this.
should.
Yeah.
I mean, that was kind of the old urban legend with the FBI. If you could hack the FBI's website and they find out, you go to jail. If you hack the FBI's website and they don't find out, you get a job.
And they don't find out?
As in, like, you can tell them, hey.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Doing what this guy did, basically. You know? Like, hey, I was able to get into your stuff. Do you want to know how? They're like, yes, because you committed a felony, but we want to hire you.
So I'm looking at the bottom of this article now, and they show the timeline where he says on January 26th he reported the issue to GitHub, and on the 26th GitHub also gets
they gave him a T-shirt.
And then, they awarded him $10,000 for a bug bounty. That's pretty awesome.
No, but he got a T-shirt.
Well, yeah,
and
I mean, that's the important part to me, too. I mean, you're talking to a guy who about a half of a month of his wardrobe is just tech shirts, so...
Yeah, you have the whole internet in shirts.
I do.
iOS, Internet of Shirts. 31st January, GitHub awarded a $10,000 bounty, a T-shirt, a few stickers, and a free lifetime personal plan, and a place in their Hall of Fame. Awesome, bro. While finishing this article, finalizing this article, they paid him another $8,000. Look at that.
Yeah, that's a decent amount of money there. That's
So he made $18,000 off of finding an exploit in GitHub, but of course, this is kind of that nefarious behavior that we can't entirely advocate people to do. But it does. Because this guy was forthright and he went to GitHub about it, and they were forthright and said, oh man, this guy really has us. It looks like they have an amicable relationship. Rather than... rather than, was it Microsoft? There was some company where someone was like, I have a zero-day exploit, and they told them, and they were like, yeah, go F yourself.
Oh, and there was the... and
then they got
one of the credit card companies. One of the phone companies on their user portal on iPads with 3G connections back in the day. Some guy, and I'm using air quotes with this, hacked the iPad by realizing that there was a query param in there that just said account number, and if you added one, you just access the other user's account. And he reported it to them, and they ended up sicking the cops on him.
There are two possible outcomes to this type. Sorry?
How is that legal?
How is what legal? It's not legal. It's completely illegal what he did.
Yeah, they said he hacked it. Yeah, it was
Verizon.
All
he did is notice something and be like, hey,
of course it's Verizon. By the way, if you've noticed, I think their building on First Avenue, the Death Star, is almost operational. I can see them putting in the final panels of Windows.
Something dark side.
Yeah, basically. Who knows what that building is going to be, other than siphoning everybody's information through it.
There's so many buildings in New York that already do that.
But the thing is that that's one. Like I said, there are two ways to go about this. The one way is you say, "Wow, good job." Give him a job or a bunch of money or some kind of goodies, and then have him keep coming back with more exploits that he might find, or rat him out to the cops, because that is technically hacking. It is technically acquiring access to something that you were not authorized to do and making the software perform outside of the legally allowed terms of service, which is illegal. So, is a crime, and with the amount that law enforcement doesn't understand technology other than how to track people on Facebook, it makes sense. It's really sad, but it makes sense.
Same movie I liked. Huh. We better take patrol off of him.
Right. No, I'm talking about the people that get arrested because they use a gun emoji. That actually happened a couple years ago in New York.
Oh, I'm sure.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tyler, I remember we were working at Heartbeat when this happened. Somebody posted a Facebook status that had like a gun and like face emoji in it, and that guy was arrested. So be careful what you post. Another public service announcement while we're in this rat hole is puddles of water may be deeper than you think. Because of the recent inclement weather, and now that the snow is starting to melt, it has accrued puddles of water in many major intersections across New York City, and even some snow that looks like snow or something that looks like road may actually be an ankle-deep puddle of 25-degree liquid. And notice I didn't say water. It's some kind of liquid that may be below freezing for water, but has many chemicals in it. I now have a sixth toe. So
I was going to say, it sounded like you're speaking from experience.
Yeah, no, what happened was on the day that it snowed, I went outside after it was over, and the first thing I did was I walked to the end of my street and stuck my foot right into a bunch of really cold water, and then my foot was numb. Anyway,
you didn't go swimming in the Gowanus instead?
Oh no! I gotta wait. I don't want to. I don't.
Powers. If you want to be in an X-Men movie,
if you want to get, if you want to get hypothermia and hepatitis at the same time, swim in the Gowanus Canal. And that's been another public service announcement. So I think we've hit the hour mark. Let's end with a nice news story. Let's talk about Docker donating Containerd to the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, and we have somebody I believe is part of the Cloud Native Computing Foundation with us on the phone. Is it Christian?
I'm not actually part of it, but I am involved in some of the projects that are.
You blew the intro.
I didn't blow the intro. You gotta get your alternative facts straight.
It's true to me.
I appreciate that.
No problem. Anyway, so you've done work for the CNCF.
I haven't done work for them, but some of their projects I have code that I've committed to those projects.
You've code that you've committed to projects that are owned by?
Governed by
governed by.
Okay. I think they prefer the word governed by. But
what does the CNCF do?
So Cloud Native Compute Foundation, it's like the Linux Foundation, but specifically for cloud native tools, which at this point are Kubernetes, Open Tracing, which is actually just a standard, not an actual project, FluentD, gRPC, Linkerd, Containerd, and Rocket are the last two being the newest additions.
And the D, of course, stands for daemon, not.
Well, usually
Tyler.
Newman. Yeah, I was gonna say I was waiting for Tyler.
We were waiting for you. Yeah.
No idea.
Yeah. So a lot of back end. I took some super male vitality before starting the show, so I feel like the inner Alex Jones is trying to get out. Anyway,
What?
we'll have to talk about conspiracy theories if we go on for much longer. But no. So it's a bunch of daemons that typically run on servers, and
most of them are daemons, not all of them.
Not all of them, but a lot of them are, and there are services that are used by would you say they're the bedrock of a lot of cloud services, branded cloud services? I mean,
in some cases, yes. A lot of these newer ones that are to help you run in the cloud are built on top of these, but it's really that these tools help you have your code exist in the cloud very easily. Like
but all the big companies have donated a piece of something, or I shouldn't say all of them, but a lot of the big companies, Google, Microsoft, possibly Facebook. I don't think Apple has Docker.
Microsoft has done work towards it, but they haven't actually.
They were on that flowchart. Whatever.
Well, so that chart, that is the, I'm happy you brought that up, that's the cloud native landscape, and part of the argument there is the fact that it's not just the tools that they govern that you necessarily have to use to be quote-unquote cloud native, it's just this landscape that you follow, then these are the kind of tools that just make running in the cloud a lot easier. So you have things like containers, orchestration, some way of messaging between services like gRPC or Rabbit MQ's AMQP protocol, or
more acronym soup, basically.
Linkerd, or what's the thing Lyft built that's really cool?
Lyft
Envoy.
Oh, they built a mobile app.
They have that, but they also have they have an open source project that they have an open source project that's a lot like Nginx, but a little bit more.
Why would they want to do that?
The big thing is Nginx doesn't support service discovery out of the box, and Envoy does, and then otherwise it's very similar in that it's just a reverse proxy to the service discovery things.
Gotcha. So Docker donated Containerd, which is at the core of Docker. It's not all of it, but it's basically Docker's way of making containers.
It's what basically old Docker was, but then they kind of pulled it out and made it a bit better because it was pulled out, and that then what now is Docker kind of just wraps around this and a few other things. What Containerd is just a supervisor to manage run C containers, which were just the first containers to follow the whole OCI spec.
And run C containers are a Unix standard, right?
They are the OCI standard.
OCI standard, okay.
Then those can run on. They're fully spec'd out for Solaris, Windows, and Linux, but other OSs could, in fact, implement the OCI standard as long as they follow the specs.
Gotcha. And now, so with Containerd, what does that mean? What are the ramifications for that in the rest of the things that are part of CNCF?
The big thing was before being owned by Docker, it was really just Docker and anyone who Docker felt could actually pull in their code. Now that it's owned by CNCF, it's like Docker was a company who open source is what was while it wasn't directly bringing them revenue, it was helping bring in revenue. And when it was owned by them, they could make changes to help with their revenue, as opposed to now this open source governing body that isn't making revenue from their projects manages it. It's the idea of making money off of it isn't driving development. It's the idea of making a better product.
Gotcha.
I shouldn't call it a product. I should say project.
Service?
Yeah. Well, not really service either.
Not really a service. It's a project work.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that it?
I believe so.
Tyler, you have anything to add?
No, I think we submitted pulling out their container D and the ramifications. So giggity.
Oh my god.
Thank you. My God, thank you. That was. I salute you, sir.
Okay.
So many things for our audience.
And on that note, I think that's everything that we've got for this week. That's all the time we have, even though it's a podcast that have no time limits. That's all the time we have for this week's pull request. So, Christian, do you approve this week's pull request?
LGTM.
Tyler, do you approve this week's pull request?
+1.
Well, then let's all hit merge. And we'll see you next week, right here on Pull Request. This has been a Pneumonium production. The views and opinions expressed on Pull Request do not necessarily reflect those of Pneumonium LLC or its subsidiaries.